And a very good Friday morning to you on a dreary, almost London-esque morning in Tucson, Arizona. A little bit uncharacteristic, Hazi, for what we're accustomed to out here. Probably in the low 60s with a light drizzle, but maybe a welcome change for some. David Mooradian, joined by Hazi Richardson on the rundown on a Friday morning. Hazi, we're coming just a few days removed from Arizona's first loss of the season. As remarkable as that is, that it took till mid-February for the Cats to get tripped up on the road in Kansas in what was a really wild atmosphere that certainly played an advantage for the home team. And the Jayhawks were also still in the aftermath of the NFL season. We're at the All-Star break of the NBA season, about to get started with the spring training festivities in baseball. So it's a busy time. Of course, we've got the Winter Olympics going on in northern Italy. So we can take it wherever we want, Hazi, but I really think we should start with the Arizona Wildcats and our takeaways from that game, and also previewing what we expect from the matchup tomorrow against Texas Tech, a game that has drawn College Game Day to campus. So, Hazi, I'll ask you a question, and then I'll jump in when needed. What are your takeaways from the loss against Kansas? Do you view this as maybe symbol? So there's some takeaways that are negative and concerning about the way they played that could be issues down the road, or is it more just maybe a one-game aberration?
See, my thing is this. There are maybe one or two bad things that I really noticed during that game, but it's nothing that I would be overly concerned about, if that would make sense. Because to me, the thing about it was we didn't win the rebounding game the way we were winning before, right? So, and I just feel like some of that you can blame on, whatever you want to say about the officiating. Some of it you can just blame on the fact that we were just getting flat out rebounded.
Right.
And then some of it was just we lost the turnover battle again. Or not again. I think for the first time this year we lost the turnover battle to a team. And again, some of that you can blame on officiating because some of it is missed foul calls. Some of it was just we rushed shots or we rushed possessions. So. But overall, I think it was just the crowd. It was they kind of willed Kansas to win that game. And I don't feel like this is something we should be overly worried about because, listen, if anything, I feel like they're going to use this as a learning experience. So they're going to bounce back from this. They're going to be a better team. And overall, I don't think it's too concerning. And to be quite honest, I think we're going to be right. I think we're going to be just fine, and we're going to be right back to either being a 1 seed or, for some magical reason they give Michigan the 1 seed over us, fine, then we're a 2 seed. Either way, we're going to stay in the West. So believe me, David, we're going to be fine.
Yeah. Well, the other thing to keep note or that I thought was substantial was Kansas really beat Arizona at Arizona's own game. You mentioned it. You said Arizona was out-rebounded, and Kansas' defense was suffocating at the end. Arizona really struggled to get baskets. They had only a couple of field goals the final 10 minutes. So that was what I was surprised by. Arizona's continually been able to play strong defense, out-rebound their opponents, and dominate in the paint. And it was the Jayhawks who really had the advantage underneath the basket. So that was surprising to me. Do you think that could be an issue again, or you think it was just kind of circumstantial there?
I feel like it could be, especially when we have to go play Houston on the road so soon afterwards. But it's also, I just think we rushed a lot of our shots.
Right.
A lot of shots were taken early in the shot clock. It felt like we were settling versus trying to find our best shot. And again, credit to Kansas' defense because they gave us absolutely nothing down low. But to me, a lot of the shots felt rushed, and it was just kind of, I don't know, almost like, okay, we're going to settle for this because we need a bucket right now to settle down the crowd versus just let's play our game, let's play our offense, and find the best shot that we can. So it is a little concerning, especially with the gauntlet that we still have to run coming up, including going to Houston and Baylor. But I feel like if we know Tommy Lloyd and if we know the Arizona Wildcats basketball team, especially this year, these boys are going to take it as a learning experience.
Right. Now, one player that really excelled on Monday was Badunga for Kansas, and he was a player that we highlighted beforehand. 23 points, a lot of it coming against Krivas, and it felt like Krivas had the advantage in that matchup in the first half, but Tobe Awaka had some foul trouble and didn't find himself in the game a great deal, as did Krivas, really. So the two of them were balancing that, and whatever the matchup was, Bonanga effectively did whatever he wanted, especially the final 10 minutes, and Arizona really struggled with entry into the paint and allowing him to go 8 for 11 from the field, a lot of high percentage shots. And also you had Melvin Council with seamless penetration into the paint, creating opportunities and getting to the foul line. He took 11 free throws on Monday as well. So that paint protection was really surprising, and that's not something I expected really at all this season.
To me, it almost made them look human.
Yeah.
We put them on such a giant pedestal, and I mean, they started 23-0. We weren't losing any battle when it came to points in the paint as well as rebounds. Just the overall look of how we were facing a team in the paint. But then when it came to Kansas, Monunga just had Kribas's number almost all night, whether it was on the offensive side of the ball or the defensive side of the ball.
Right.
And especially on one of those possessions where, and listen, you can argue that it was a travel. Fact of the matter is, Kribas did jump early anyway to begin with, trying to get the steal, because I just don't think that he wanted to face Monunga inside again, because he was just he was bullying him all night in the paint. So it made us feel a little human, but I think it's what we need. I think we needed a coming back to earth moment.
Now, surprisingly, the offensive rebounds were very even in this game. Arizona with 18, Kansas with 17. And, that may not jump out to somebody on the surface, but really, Arizona's been out rebounding teams, especially in the offensive glass, by a margin of 5+ virtually every game. The other thing that was shocking is the free throw disparity and the physicality, right? Arizona's usually a team that works it inside and can get to the basket with ease, and they only had 14 free throws, Hazi. Now, you mentioned the officiating, and maybe that's part of it, but I thought Kansas, hates to be this simplistic, but they were the more aggressive team, and aggression a lot of times is shown in free throw attempts, and the Jayhawks had 25 free throw attempts, of which they made 21, so really solid at 84% there. 25 free throw attempts for Kansas to Arizona's 14. So there was a major deficit for the Cats to make up in that regard, and ultimately they couldn't.
I completely agree with you on that, David, because while I think a little bit of it, I don't think it was officiating that much, because to me, they let them play on both sides of the ball, whether it was fighting for rebounds, fighting for the loose balls, whatever. Everything had to be earned, and
right.
That's one thing I do like more about the Big 12 officials, is that they're not going to stop a play. They're gonna be like, listen, y'all got to earn it.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to let you play it out. We're going to let it be physical. But it's also, again, going back to the fact that I said before, we just rushed a lot of the shots, especially when Kansas started that comeback in the second half, because I don't know if a lot of people know this, but we were up 11 a good way into that, maybe 5 minutes, 6 minutes into that second half. So, and then as Kansas started to come back, it felt like our shots just started to get more and more rushed, because they were like, okay, we got to settle down the crowd and we got to do it quick, versus just getting into sets, playing our offense. So I felt like a lot of it was we weren't getting to the rim a lot in that second half.
Right.
It felt like a lot of our shots were either coming from the mid-range or the three. So that was a disparity for us, but it's also, I just feel like we gotta, when the tide gets tough, we gotta stick to our guns. We cannot just start shooting threes and then taking mid-ranges that are contested by 2 or 3 people. If you see a man that's open, or if you know that you have time on the shot clock, I'm not saying to stop your dribble, but slow your dribble and make the next pass, and let's play for another set, play for another play.
So you think Arizona was too quick to abandon their own play style? Is that what you're kind of getting at here?
In the second half, yes, and I think a lot of it, some of it has to do with the fact that it is Allen Fieldhouse, and you are in Lawrence, Kansas, and you are playing in probably one of the best college arenas in the country.
Right.
But it's also, I think it's just a lot of when you feel. It almost started to feel like the boys were getting flustered, and especially because they weren't getting calls, or as you said before, Awaka was getting into foul trouble, so that didn't help much either. But it's also when Koa struggles, you can always rely on Braden, but who's kind of that guy to rely on when they're both struggling?
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. And Koa Pete, right? I think some of the spotlight's got to be on him. I mean, this was not a great game for him, of which there's now been a couple of tough outings for him. And you have to kind of ask if he's not going to be able to be accurate from mid-range, right? He was 2 for 11, just 6 points on the night. He also continues to struggle from the free throw line. He did have 5 rebounds, but is he justifying the kind of stardom that has been put upon him if these are going to be his performances in some big-time matchups? Now, we've seen him really abuse some of the inferior teams, but against the top teams, the let's say creme de la creme, he was 4 for 8 from the field against BYU, right? He was 1 for 4 against Central Florida, which was a tough game for Arizona at the time, and it's been a tough game for quite a few teams. So I understand against ASU, he's 9 for 16 or 10 for 17 against TCU. That's all well and good, but you really are going to have to make it happen against some of these top teams when the shots are a little bit contested and when the rhythm isn't perfect. And 2 for 11 from the field, Hazi, at least to me, is somewhat concerning. And just the season numbers as a whole, right? His 3-point shooting is basically a non-factor. And his free throw shooting has been a struggle this season. So do you have any concern about Koa Pete moving forward based on the game against Kansas?
The free throw shooting has been concerning to me all season.
Yep.
Because you kind of saw it even in the beginning when he dropped, the 30 against Florida. It was like cool, but like you missed some here and there, just stuff. Then it's like these games against the better opponents where he just can't seem to find the net at all. And then it's also the fact that when he does play against these better schools, I believe he still thinks he can. The thing about when you play the inferior schools is you're going to be stronger than a lot of these inferior schools.
Right.
Because you're a stronger guy. They might not have the physicality to keep up with you or just the height. That doesn't really matter much, but you can force your way down low and get those shots to go. When you're playing a Kansas, when you're playing a BYU, when we go to Houston, it might not be like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you just have to find better ways of getting your shot up than I'm going to post you up down low, and whether you're stronger or not, or whether you push back or not, I'm still going to put up this little floater and, hope that it goes in. I think it's a little bit of I think Tommy Lloyd said it best when he was talking to Mo Kribas. He said, hey, Mo, we want to work on your footwork and stuff like that. And to me, Mo Kribas probably has one of the best footworks of any of the guys on the team.
Right.
So to me, it's with Koa, it's just don't force anything that's not there. And especially when you have two guys, and one might be the guy who's guarding you, but then the other might be the center who know that you're going to try to force that shot up. Maybe find the extra pass, or simply when we run that pick and roll, whether it's him and Barry's, him and Bradley, him and Ivan, him and Del Rosso, there always seems to be either him, Krivas, or Waka. One of them tends to get open. I think we just got to, with Koa, it's really sticking to our game and not letting the moment of playing these, as you said, creme de la creme in the Big 12 kind of get him out of his element.
Yeah, really just the toughest games, of which there are plenty coming up, especially at home. Arizona's remaining home schedule really missing any free wins. Possibly their easiest home game is next against Texas Tech on Saturday. Then it'll be BYU on Wednesday before that final home stretch of the year, the weekend after, against Kansas and Iowa State. So it's not going to get any easier for Arizona, and they're going to have to make the adjustments against the top teams. And they're going to have to rely on one of their premier players, which is Koa Pete. Will he rise to the occasion in those games? That remains to be seen. All right, so Arizona loses to Kansas in what was a pretty even game. The Jayhawks got to the free throw line quite a bit more, also forced 2 more turnovers, but looking through the statistics, you'd be hard-pressed to find a real advantage for either side, and that's why the game was as close as it was. So then we pivot to the team that's coming into the McHale Center on Saturday, a game that I said has drawn the desire of College Game Day, which, you've got the number 1 team hosting another team that's been really solid this year in Texas Tech. They've got some major victories, including a win over Duke this year. So, Hazi, my first glance is I think this is going to be a good matchup for Arizona and a game that they should be able to pull through. The top player for Tech is JT Toppin, and Toppin is actually a little bit like a Koa Pete kind of player in that he has terrific size. He wants to play near the basket. He's strong on both ends. He's got a couple of blocks and steals per game, really. So his defensive production is certainly there. But he's not going to take that many threes, right? He takes about 2 3-pointers a game, which is really not a lot in today's basketball. So kind of a Koa-Pete type player. Will Pete and Karchenkov be enough to slow him down? That'll be part of the question. What do you see in this matchup between Tech and Arizona?
So I like this matchup for us because to me it's a team that plays like us and a team that mirror us, and who better to stop you than yourselves.
Right.
So I believe because JT Toppin is just exactly like Koa-Pete in the way that he doesn't really shoot a lot of threes. To me, he's a little bit more efficient because I think he leads Texas Tech in field goal percentage, but it could also just depend on how many shots he's taking per game. So to me, it's, again, if we can shut them down low, if we follow the same equation that we really followed all year except for last Monday against Kansas, where we just stick to forcing teams to take one shot a possession and just rebound, as well as just making sure that a lot of our shots are coming from down low, not forcing up any threes. Don't force Koa to shoot a three. Don't make a Waka shoot one or Krivas. If you're gonna shoot them, stick to the people who usually can make those. So to me, it's a good matchup for us because we're the better team on paper, but again, papers usually end up getting crumbled by the end of the game.
Yeah, that's true.
So I feel as if we're a better matchup, and the biggest thing for me is we're back at home.
Yes.
These boys have said it over and over again. They love playing at McHale. McHale is a different atmosphere. It's an atmosphere where you can just feel the love for them. That, and it's Caleb Love's, I believe, ring ceremony. So they're retiring. He's going into the Ring of Honor. So to me, it's we have everything going in our favor. That, and I feel if they weren't hungry before coming into this, that Kansas game gave them a slap in the mouth, and it woke them up and gave them probably more of the hunger that they already had. So to me, I think this is a great game for us to bounce back, especially because it's another ranked opponent, and hopefully it'll prepare us for the games down the road that we have, like BYU the Wednesday after, and I believe Houston Saturday after that.
Yeah. Well, the Koa-Pete thing that I was mentioning that I is slightly concerned by, and we both are, is his field goal percentage is strong at 54%, but he's taking a lot of high percentage shots. His free throw percentage, Hazi, is 61%. It's very rare to see a field goal percentage and a free throw percentage so close together. So he's 61% from the line this year. Certainly something that people have an eye on. That's Koa-Pete. Now, one other theme going into this game, and it's indisputable, really, is how strong Big 12 teams have been at home this year. I mean, there has been a stark contrast between the home standings and the home, performance as compared to how teams are doing on the road. So in conference play, you've got Arizona as the best team away from home at 6-1. Houston's right there at 5-1. Everybody else is 500 or worse on the road, and that includes what we saw from Iowa State on Tuesday, where they lost to a TCU team that's not particularly good on the road. Texas Tech has not been immune to the away struggles as well. They're 3-3 away from Lubbock this year, and then they're 5-0 at home. So maybe a big break for Arizona to be playing Tech at home. Now, these teams did play 3 times last year. Arizona's a much different team than they were last year. They've got a lot of new faces, a lot of new freshmen, really making up the difference. But for what it's worth, Arizona really struggled in Texas Tech last year, a 16-point loss, a game that was never close from start to finish. Later in the year, as the team was playing much better, they ended up earning a relatively convincing victory against Texas Tech and then went on to beat them again in the Big 12 tournament, 86-80. In those 3 games, the top player again for Tech was JT Toppin. He was tough to miss. He had 20 points in their home victory. He also added 21 points in the game that Texas Tech lost in the McHale Center, and then Arizona really had the answers for him in that Big 12 semifinal game that they were able to win, with Toppin having just 13 points and Arizona, moving on to play Houston and ultimately losing a competitive game there. So they've got plenty of experience defending JT Toppin. He'll be the main threat for Texas Tech, and I do think Arizona's well-equipped to slow him down. I think it's going to be a mixture of Karchenkov and Koa-Pete defending him, and they can also get some help if they need from Awaka and Krivas. But this is a team with great size, Texas Tech. They've got the ability to contest Arizona on the boards for the entire game, they're also going to want to work the ball inside. They will take a few more threes than Arizona will, but I don't believe it'll be a big margin. I think both of these teams are going to look to have success near the basket and generate high percentage shots. So really it'll come down to who can do it better. And at home, the odds are certainly in favor of Arizona, who's roughly a 10-point favorite going into the game tomorrow. Anything I didn't quite get to there, Hazi?
My biggest thing is this, and maybe it's more of a hot take in college basketball because 20-point games are basically in college basketball the NBA equivalent of 30-point games.
Yeah.
So what do you do when a guy is constantly having 20, except for the 13-point game where we held him to in the Big 12 tournament? So what do you do when a guy is constantly having 20 against you? Well, you say as a guy, you say, okay, that's fine, but what is his supporting cast doing? It's kind of like how, in a way, like teams for a little bit were guarding Nikola Jokic in the NBA. It's like I can let him have his triple-double 40, 12, and 10, but if Jamal Murray and Aaron Gordon have less than 10 points each, we've done our job.
Right.
So to me, my thing is we're going to obviously rotate, Kravchenko and Koa Pete against JT Toppin. Cool. And do I think they're absolutely capable of holding him under 20? Absolutely. But in the case that they don't, okay, what does the next supporting cast member look like? Does he have over 13? Or what does the third supporting cast member look like? Does he have over 10, over 8? So I think, yes, the main goal will be to stop JT Toppin, but it's also, we can't forget about the guys who are like considered, I guess, the low-hanging fruit either, because those low-hanging fruit can come and get you. And especially as a Knicks fan and as an Arizona Wildcats basketball fan, I've seen it firsthand. So
yeah.
we also just got to make sure to look out for the low-hanging fruit as well as JT Toppin.
Now, there is a little bit of news off topic to what we're discussing right now that I do want to get to, and that is that there is going to be an announcement made in about an hour that is relevant to the McHale Center, and I have a feeling this is the speculation part. It's official that there's an announcement being made by the athletic director at the McHale Center. I believe this is going to be a name change for the McHale Center as well. We already saw the football season, in the football season, the stadium go to Casino del Sol Stadium, which I still think they should have called Stadium del Sol, but that's a story for another day. Nonetheless, I think we're going to get a very similar announcement here in just a couple of minutes from the athletic director, and we'll see if that name change is going to be relevant tomorrow for College Game Day's broadcast, if they're going to have to refer to it as the McHale Center or as something else. So stay tuned for that. Check your social media feeds or wherever you get your information. Probably better to get your information from somewhere else, but nonetheless, I'm expecting some sort of announcement there in about an hour or so. So that'll be interesting to see. All right, back to the topic of Arizona and Texas Tech. Just the closing thought for me is it's a great opportunity for Arizona to bounce back. They already got a victory against BYU on the road, so you have to like their chances at home. But really, the first game after a loss for a team that was undefeated is always really interesting because you can start to learn if this team is going to be able to bounce back and make the necessary adjustments, which I suspect they will, or if there's going to be a little bit of a snowball effect, and if things get worse and they're not able to address some of the things that went wrong against Kansas. So that is going to be very telling, and I think this game is going to be rich with information as we try to infer the kind of team that Arizona is. So to me, that's what's at stake on Saturday with these two teams playing. And we'll just have to see how it plays out for Arizona and then which conclusion we're able to form when we're back here on Monday to have our thoughts at 5 o'clock. All right, let's get to the NBA. Believe it or not, we've done criminally low amount of NBA coverage this year on this show, so we'll put that to rest now as we get a natural stoppage here with the All-Star break coming up, and of course they've got the country flair to it with you got Team Stars, right, and Team Stripes and the World and all that jazz, so we'll see how that goes. My expectations are low. I don't really think the All-Star break is something that's worth a lot of our time, but I do like it as a natural stoppage, and we can kind of take the temperature in the NBA, Hazi. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to throw out a little bit of a take, at least how I organize information, and then I want you to sort it out with me. So in the Eastern Conference, I'm going to create what I call 4 tiers, okay? So tier 1 are the teams that I give a tremendous percentage of going to the final, right? These are the teams that I expect to represent the conference. Tier 2 are teams that could make it happen. I'd be surprised. Tier 3 is like, all right, it's like a cute playoff team, And then tier 4 is everybody else. So tier 4 means I give you no chance of doing anything. A tier 2 team can make it happen. A tier 3 team is like, hey, maybe they win a round. Or they could be a tough battle in round 1, but no more than that. And then, like I said, tier 4 is you're wasting everyone's time. So to me, there's 2 teams in tier 1, and that's Detroit and New York. Now, we're biased a little bit, but I tend to think I see my teams pretty objectively. Here's the bottom line. The Knicks are healthy. The Celtics aren't. And the Knicks head-to-head against Boston this year have looked really good, including a dominating 22-point victory at TD Garden on Sunday. So that is a meaningful data point for me. The Knicks they had that little stretch where they went 2-9. They're 11-11, or maybe 12-11 in their last 23 games. So recently they have been around 500. But they've been a streaky team. I tend to believe that, especially the new addition that they have, is going to be meaningful for them and certainly bolster their defense. And I think they're on level. Now, you don't have to really defend the Pistons because, they've done incredible things this year. They're 40-13. They're building off that impressive first-round showing last year against New York, a series that they were just a couple of calls away from really forcing a Game 7.
Right.
And that could have had a completely different feel. So those are my Tier 1 teams. Tier 2 was also just 2 teams. And to me, that's Boston and Cleveland. Now, I think Boston without Jason Tatum is not going to go to the finals. And I don't expect Tatum to push it. I don't expect him to rush back. If Tatum is unavailable for the Celtics, I think they'll probably win their first-round matchup against a team like Orlando. And then I think that's probably going to be it, especially if they draw the Knicks. I would absolutely give the Knicks the edge in a 2-3 series there and feel pretty good about doing so. So it's Boston and Cleveland. Now, I don't think Cleveland is particularly scary with or without James Harden, right? I'm not a Harden fan. His playoff production and his team certainly don't perform in the playoffs. He's also in the later stages of his career. So I think this is kind of a bizarre move for Cleveland. They get rid of a younger player that I thought, probably had more potential moving forward. And for a team that's been plagued by postseason struggles and has had really impressive regular seasons, the Cavaliers pick up a player who has been really dominant in the regular season and never done anything in the playoffs. So I think that's a really bizarre move. It's kind of like if you're making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and you've got way too much peanut butter, not enough jelly, and then you go to the supermarket and you buy a Costco, like big pack of peanut butter and you don't get any more jelly. I think that's kind of what the Cavaliers have done here. My Tier 3 consists of 4 teams, really 5. Let's go 5 teams. It's going to be Charlotte, Miami, Orlando, Philly, and Toronto. So this is a big cluster. So again, these are teams that are like, they're having a fun season. They're kind of cute. They could give somebody a tough time in the first round. Probably the toughest team in that list right now would be Philly, with a close second being Charlotte. Of course, the Raptors had that little stretch where they were playing really well recently. That's kind of come to a close. The Hornets are 9-1 in their last 10, so they do deserve some respect. And they've got a fun young team led by Kneppel, really, who's been a fun player to watch for Charlotte. Sixers, again, I think they're a good story with Edgecombe really filling in and helping out Maxey, who's just a superstar. But they're spending a lot of money with guys like Joel Embiid that do not give them tons of production. So those are my Tier 3 teams, and then Tier 4 is everybody else. None of those teams have a chance. Surprising to see Indiana all the way at the bottom of the standings. Now, for whatever reason, Hazi, when they play the Knicks, they look like the Indiana team from last year. But every other game, they're horrible, and that's very shocking. So I just threw out a ton of information. Dissect it however you wish, and we'll get into it here.
Okay, so we'll start with Tier 1.
Yep. Would you have done that differently?
No.
Okay.
A little bit. The only way I would have done Tier 1 a bit differently is, and I hate to say this, I would have put Boston in it.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Go ahead.
And I say that because we were expecting them, or maybe some people were, some people weren't, to drop off without Jason Tatum.
Yeah.
They made a bunch of moves that were a little bit questionable in the offseason. But then before they kind of went on this little stretch of where they lost to the Knicks, and I still have them below New York and Detroit,
right,
just because New York has, I think, beaten them 2 out of 3 times this year.
That's correct.
And I'm not sure their record against Detroit, but I also think it's the same, or Detroit has swept them so far.
Okay, we'll get a fact check on that.
But the thing with Boston is I believe before they've gone on this like little stretch of losing games right now, they had won games I think like 7 straight without trailing, which I don't care what league you're in, that's hard to do.
Yeah.
And that was without Jason Tatum. Now, Jason Tatum him and Tyrese Halliburton are projected to be back in March. I don't see Tyrese Halliburton coming back in March, especially with the Pacers, not on track to do anything this season. It makes no sense. But with Jason Tatum, it's like, okay, when he does come back into the rotation, how is he going to fit into the rotation? Because I definitely see Jason Tatum being a guy where he's going to tell Coach Mazzulla, hey, wherever you want me is where I'm going to be. Whether you want me to come off the bench as a 6-man, whether you do want me to come back in and start right away, whatever you want me to do, I'll do it for the team. And especially because I think he said it best the other day, I really don't want to, he said he doesn't want to feel like he's going to interrupt the rotation. So to me, that and especially coming from a star guy like him, where you have so many stars today who, let's just say, wouldn't put themselves in that type of role.
Right.
To me, that's scary because not only do you have a team that's still good enough to win without their star, but now when their star comes back, can compromise enough to be like, okay, if I'm coming off the bench, that's still fine for me as long as we're winning games.
Yeah.
So Boston would be in my tier 1. I completely agree with you with having Cleveland in tier 2. And I would also add Donovan Mitchell to that list of guys that are great in the regular season, but don't perform in the playoffs.
Well, I had him in mind solely, really, when I was discussing that. And Donovan Mitchell is in large part their team, right? So he can't hide from their record recently. They've been terrific in the regular season. Playoff success has been abysmal. Let's go back to the Celtics here. Let's just circle back for a second. So the question absolutely is about Tatum. He's the question mark. Let's approach this 2 different ways, okay? Mm-hmm. Assuming Jason Tatum does not return this year, which I think is a possibility. Let's say he doesn't return. Are they still in tier 1?
No.
Okay, so we're in agreement there.
So tier 1 for them is really depending on if Tatum.
Right. All right, and then if he comes back, there's really 2 things. Is he 100%? Is he confident enough to play the way he used to play? And then how does he fit back in the rotation? So for things to really go well with his return, a couple of things have to go. He has to feel physically confident and healthy enough to return to the player he was. Then he's going to have to gel with the team that has been without him for the entire season, and they'll have to put it all together. So there's a couple of clauses there to make that all happen. So until I kind of see that, Hazi, I've got them in tier 2. I think the Celtics have the burden of proof there. They've got to show me that they're a tier 1 team. The other thing is they're 2-5 against New York and Detroit this year. They are done playing the Pistons. They won 1 out of 4 against Detroit. They've won 1 out of 3 against the Knicks. So they're 2-5 against those top teams in the Eastern Conference. And I think that's a little bit more telling about the kind of team they are without Jason Tatum. Now, Jaylen Brown, you said some of us were expecting them to drop off. Obviously, they weren't going to be the team they were last year. But I'm not surprised to see Boston toward the top of the standings because Jaylen Brown is a very competent basketball player, and he's capable of leading and facilitating that team with the talent that they have. Now, you don't dominate the way they did 2 years ago and win the championship, and they were one of the better teams last year in the regular season without multiple great players, right? You're not doing that just with Jason Tatum. So certainly Tatum is a big loss. They have a very good team. They have a tier 2 team right now, and will need Tatum and to gel to get to the top tier. We're in agreement on that. All right, get back into tier 2.
So the thing with Boston is this, right? Jaylen Brown, he's a very capable basketball player. And I totally forgot this too. He did win the Finals MVP a couple years ago, right? Had a great series in the finals, had a great overall playoffs. But the thing is, it's just cool. Now the thing is, can this year, when you do get past the first round of, let's say, an Orlando or Chicago or a Toronto, Miami, Charlotte, whoever, and you have to go against a Knicks, a Detroit, even a Cleveland or a Philly, do you have enough manpower around you to win those series? To me, that's a no, at least not without Tatum. But my thing with Cleveland is this. Donovan Mitchell in Cleveland last year, I think, had 2 or 3 20-point leads against Indiana.
Right.
They lost that series 4-1.
Yep.
Then you look at James Harden's track record. A couple years ago when James Harden was on the Sixers, now some of it you can blame on him, some of it you can blame on Embiid, the supporting cast, whatever. Fact of the matter is, you go into a game, you were up 3-2 in a series against Boston. you not only lose the game at home in Game 6, you put up 9 points in a Game 7, right? So then, okay, cool, now you're coming to Cleveland, or when he was on the Clippers not the Clippers, I think it was the Clippers, a couple years ago, and they played Denver in that Game 7.
Yep.
I think he only had 12 that game as well. So James Harden, to me, and that's like what you said with the peanut butter analogy.
Yeah.
If I go to the store and I'm seeing that I have too much peanut butter and not enough jelly, it's like, and why am I going to go get more peanut butter?
There's no reason to.
And especially because, yeah, like, I get it. It's not like you lost much besides Darius Garland. But it's also, what else did you really gain from that besides James Harden? Because don't get me wrong, James Harden is going to go down as one of the best basketball players of all time. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But when you need this man to perform, whether that's in the conference finals, the semifinals, and get you to that next benchmark, he doesn't show up.
Yeah, and I think the James Harden discussion is a really interesting one because I do believe team success is a relevant factor for deciding the legacy of a player, and he's just never been a strong defender at any point in his career, Hazi. And in the playoffs, defense is at such a premium, and you look at teams like OKC, right? They won last year. They've dominated this season. They can play great defense. And the Boston Celtics, the year they won the championship, they were playing strong defense. So, yeah, you've got to be able to score, but the difference between the teams that, like Cleveland, have good regular seasons and really perform in the postseason are the teams that can crank it up on the other side. And a James Harden team could never do that because of the player that he is. So I do think that does tarnish his legacy to some extent, and he is responsible for his team's struggles in the postseason. A lot of it, in my view, is because of his defensibility or lack thereof. So I think he is kind of plagued by that, and we'll see if it continues to be an issue with Cleveland. I suspect it will be. Now, their draw likely will be a round 2 matchup in Detroit, in which case I give them virtually no chance. I mean, let's be honest about that.
I give them a game in Cleveland. I give them Game 3 in Cleveland. Right. But besides that, I don't give them much. I believe, and this is from somebody who watched Cade and them even watching Cade in the Pistons last season, I was like, dude, this team had us they were scaring us for the majority of that series. And it's like, even the games we won, they didn't come without earning them.
No.
Didn't come without a cat big 3 at the end. Jalen Brunson's last second 3 in the end of Game 6.
Right.
Like, we had to earn that series. So to me, Cleveland, they're gonna show heart, and I think they're gonna show heart throughout the series. But Cade, and especially with Cade, and I believe it's Asar Thompson, Tobias Harris, like that whole team as a whole, and especially Isaiah Stewart, where they just have two, now weapons that have developed and actually formed into weapons, is going to be too much for Cleveland.
No, I think that's absolutely a possibility. So then what about the Sixers or Toronto, anybody in that ballpark?
To me, Toronto is interesting because they're a good enough team on paper. The problem is, I also think this is a team that lacks experience, and I feel like that's what's going to kill them this postseason. Now, do I think they might come back better next season? Absolutely. When it comes to Philly, here's the thing. Tyrese Maxey's great. VJ Edcombe is great. But the fact of the matter is, it's all about the dude who you're paying the most money to.
Mm-hmm.
And that right now is Joel Embiid. And I also don't agree with trading. Now, yes, you did get the first pick out of this trade. But I didn't agree with trading away Jared McCain.
Fair enough.
Because to me, when he was healthy before his injury last year, dude was dropping 20, 25 a night. Now, I hope he doesn't get lost in the shuffle in OKC, because my thing with OKC is just they have so much star power to where it's like, I realistically, I don't even think McCain played even over 10 minutes last Saturday. And they were without SGA. So I hope he doesn't get lost in the shuffle in OKC, because to me, he's way too talented of a player to not be getting a full utilization out of him, which is why I also don't agree with the trade from Philly, because was he struggling a little bit coming off this injury? Yes, because he wasn't putting up as many points as he was before, obviously. But again, he was coming off an injury, and it's not like you were giving him the best minutes either.
No question about that. Now, you have to think in the Eastern Conference that we're going to be in a position where I don't think that top four is going to move much. I expect the Knicks to be the home team against the Celtics for the majority of the games. I think New York will get to the 2. But I think you're looking at Eastern Conference semis, Boston against New York, Detroit against Cleveland. And if that's the case, I have to think that we're on a Knicks-Pistons collision course, as many have suspected will be the case, in which case New York has really struggled with Detroit, and we'll see how that plays out. All right, I think we're good here on the Eastern Conference. Now, I'm going to be maybe controversial here with how I view the West, but I'm just going to jump right into it. So, again, I've got 2 teams in Tier 1, and I think they are actually a lot closer than some would suspect, regardless, really, of, the injury to SGA. I think that the Thunder and the Spurs are right there. So, and I would have said that when the Thunder were healthy, to be perfectly honest with you. The Spurs have had great success against OKC this year. They were 4-1 against the Thunder, with SGA not appearing in just one of those games. So I think those 2 are your Tier 1 teams out there in the West. I've got 3 teams for you in Tier 2, and this is going to be very calculated, and I just want you to stick with me. I've got Denver, Houston, and Minnesota, okay? And then in Tier 3, I've got the Lakers, the Suns, the Warriors. Tier 4, again, this almost doesn't even matter in the West, but it's probably Portland, the Clippers, Memphis, and Dallas. Everybody else, no chance. I do think Dallas is better than the teams around them. Maybe you could even loop Utah into that conversation. So the West, those bad teams are not as bad. But again, there's in the West, it's really the top 3 that matter. Tier 1, OKC, San Antonio. 2 is Denver, Houston, Minnesota. And then 3 is LA, Phoenix, and Golden State.
So, with your Tier 1, right?
Yeah.
I completely agree with you on that. And to me, the margin is so close between OKC and San Antonio.
Right.
Because even without SGA, San Antonio is still 3-1 against them, including a win in OKC on Christmas Day. So, my biggest thing is this. Yes, the regular season numbers are important, and yeah, they're 4-1 in the regular season. But people got to remember, Boston swept the Knicks last year in the regular season.
Yeah, they did.
And then they lost to them in the conference semis. So now some of that you can say, oh well, Tatum was out.
Well, the Knicks were up 3-1 with Tatum healthy.
Right. It didn't really matter much anyway. So to me, it's this. SGA comes back, cool. But the thing with the Thunder is when you do see them get tested, it's almost like, all right, you're kind of just praying that the defense is good enough to make up for the lack of offense at times. And you saw it last year, even in the finals, before Tyrese went down. Tyrese hits the game winner in game 1, but I'm pretty sure the Thunder were up 10 or 12 with 3 minutes left in that game 1.
Right. Which is reminiscent of the Knicks game 1 against the Pacers,
right,
when the same thing happened, right?
So to me, it's just down the stretch of games, I guess the thought process is, can the defense sustain the lack of offensive accountability? Which I think shouldn't be the thought process because, listen, like SGA or not, like the way he plays or not, he's one of the best players in the league.
Right.
And then you also have one of the best supporting casts in Alex Caruso, the J-Dubs, Chet Holmgren, Isaiah Hartenstein. Like, they have a great supporting cast. Now, in terms of the Spurs, everything to me is going to rely on the availability of Wemby and just how many minutes he can play. Because I know for a little bit this season he was on minutes restriction because he had gotten hurt for a little bit. And you don't want to, push him back from injury, especially with a guy of his height and his size, because, that could mess him up later on. So everything's going to depend on the availability of Wemby, and if he is available, they probably are one of the most unstoppable teams in the league.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. And Wemby is the reason that they're on that same platform as OKC. And we'll see how it plays out. Now, I omitted one team, if you look at the standings, from my Tier 2.
And that's
the Lakers. And there's really 2 reasons for that. Again, I'm tipping my hand a little bit. I don't believe in LA's ability to defend. Luka Doncic has never been a strong defender. And I do view them as kind of the Cavaliers of the West. And in this case, they have basically the same record, Hazi. Cleveland is 34-21. The Lakers are 33-21. And they both have, in my view, I'm going to be a little bit of a hot take person here, they have overhyped stars who do not produce on the defensive side of the floor. Luka Doncic and James Harden. So even though I've got the Lakers in Tier 3, that's because the rest of the Lakers are not as good as Cleveland. Show me Donovan Mitchell on the LA Lakers. Now, you could say Austin Reeves, but let's be serious for a second. Reeves is having a great season.
Yeah,
but is he Donovan Mitchell?
Level of Donovan
No.
Mitchell. And me, you've hit it right on the head with the lack of defense.
Yeah, of course. But also, let me just finish this, and then I'd love to hear why you agree with me. That's something that doesn't happen often, especially when Ethan's on the show. But the Cavs also have better depth and better play around the rim than the Lakers do. So I think that they're a stronger team than LA, and that's why I've got them in the East Tier 2, and LA is in the West Tier number 3.
So, and I've told multiple people this, and my best friend, I got him, like, a Luka jersey for Christmas.
Right.
But my thing is this, right? And I've said this to him for years, ever since I found out he was, like, a Luka Doncic fan. What is the point of your guy scoring 50 if the guy going against it, not 50, 40,
right.
if the guy going against him has 45?
Yeah, it's a net loss.
What is the point? And yes, Luka is a phenomenal scorer.
Yep.
There is no ifs, ands, or buts about that. But the difference is, and if you look back at that playoff series, what did Minnesota do to win that series? Pick and roll and simply keep switching Anthony Edwards on to Luka Doncic.
Correct.
Why? Because they knew Luka Doncic for a full 7, and that game only went to 5. But for a full series, would not be able to guard Anthony Edwards. And I feel like most teams now have figured out that's the equation, even with the Lakers. And yes, LeBron James is still doing crazy things at his age. I get it. But at the same time, I think his 2023 proved he needs help.
Yeah.
And even before Luka got there, and yes, AR is great, Connect is great. Rui's great. Jackson Hayes is a good supporting cast member, as well as DeAndre Ayton. But fact of the matter is, when you put up 108 against Cleveland, who we consider Tier 2,
yeah.
and they have 127,
yeah,
that's not winning basketball.
No, so I've got LA down at 5. I think the Rockets are a deep team with some talent. I'm not, again, a huge Durant fan at this point in his career. No, I think he was a special player at a time and still performing at a high level. But I think that there are players better than him at this point across the league. Denver, again, the Nuggets, they're another team that does struggle on defense. Now, they can tune it up in the playoffs, so that's what we saw last year when they gave OKC everything they bargained for in that series that went 7 games. But there's always something that's missing to me a little bit with the Nuggets. They're a slower team, right? Everything runs through Jokic, and if he has an off game, they're in trouble. And anytime you have a team that's that one-dimensional, that dependent on one player, I tend to give the edge to others. So that's why Denver is in my Tier 2. Minnesota, here's the thing I like about Minnesota. They've got star power, they've got depth, and they've got demonstrated performance in the playoffs. That's a really strong combination in my view. So I think that the Timberwolves are, they're a team to keep an eye on. I've got them Tier 2. I think they're better than LA, and they certainly beat LA like a drum in the playoffs last year. And I would expect if the two ever play each other this year, which they won't based on the draw, that I'd give the edge to the Timberwolves. So I think the Timberwolves, Houston, and Denver have a real chance to make some noise. But the two top teams there are Houston and LA, or Houston and are San Antonio and OKC. I was 0-2 on that sentence. And, the rest of it is kind of is what it is. I don't think anybody's too scared of Phoenix or Golden State either.
So here's my thing, and I'll start in Minnesota, right?
Yep.
Because my thing with the Timberwolves is, to me, they've shown that they have the potential in the playoffs the last 2 years.
Right.
Because I don't know if people know this, but the team that has been the runner-up for the past 2 years in the West has been the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yeah.
And it's been to the OKC and Dallas. Now the question for the Timberwolves is, can you get over that hurdle?
Mm-hmm.
Can you just get over that threshold and make a finals appearance for the first time, I think, since 2002, 03?
Yeah.
No, it's
been a minute.
Yeah. So can you now get over that threshold and now make the finals appearance? In terms of Houston is scary because the thing is, to me, I thought they were going to get worse without Dylan Brooks, without the guys that they lost for the Kevin Durant trade. And to me, they've gotten better.
Yep.
And now here comes the big question. What is Kevin Durant now going to look like in a Rockets uniform in the playoffs?
Yeah.
Because we've seen him struggle in the playoffs years past. The Brooklyn years, the Phoenix years, including getting swept by Minnesota, I believe his first year in Phoenix. So he's had playoff struggles. Does that now get remedied because he's playing with, you can argue, a little bit of a better cast in Houston? And my thing with Denver is this, and it's kind of like I told you before when it comes to guarding Nikola Jokic. At some point, there are going to be games where he's off, yes, but there are going to be games where you just know you can't stop him.
Right.
Where you know he's going to get the shot up with 23.9 on the shot clock, and it's nothing but net.
Yep.
What is his supporting cast doing around him, though? What is Jamal Murray doing around him? What is Aaron Gordon doing around him? What is Christian Braun doing around him? What are guys like that doing around Nikola Jokic? Are they having 20-point nights as well? Or is it they're being held to 10 and 2 assists and 1 rebound? Because to me, if you can hold, I'm sorry, there are going to be nights where you can't stop that man from getting 40. But
No.
if Jamal Murray has 8, I've still won.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. So is there anything you would have done differently with my Western Conference playoff picture / tier ranking?
My hot take for the West, and this is only a hot take because depending how you look at Minnesota.
Yep.
Minnesota's a tier 1 team to me.
Wow.
And that's because you could have made the case of 2 years ago they were a 3 seed.
Yep.
You could have expected them to go to the conference finals.
Yep.
Last year they were a 6 seed.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, you could say they beat the Lakers, and you expected them to beat the Lakers, and sure they might have beat up on a beaten Warriors team, but it's not like OKC was blowing them out for 5 or 6 games straight. OKC had to earn those games in the fourth quarter.
Right.
So to me, they're a bit easier to put in tier 1 just because they have been in the conference finals the past 2 years, and Anthony Edwards has shown that, no matter how much you doubt him or no matter how much you don't like him because of, whatever happens with him off the court, he doesn't let that carry on to his game. And he's just going to come out there and he's going to play his game and he's going to get his shots up. And most importantly, when you need him to be, he's going to guard that best player.
Right. Yeah, and I think that the Timberwolves have, like I said, they've demonstrated it in the playoffs. They've been a team that's been around, and you mentioned it. They were in the Western Conference Final last year and battling with the Thunder after the Thunder had a tight series with the Nuggets. So they're a team that you got to keep an eye on, no question. And then once again, they find themselves in that 6th spot. So will they be going to Denver or Houston in the first round? That remains to be seen. Golden State would have been an interesting team with Jimmy Butler, but they, alas, have no chance without him. So that's kind of the story there. But what it really comes down to is you've got 2 teams in the West you give a great chance to, San Antonio, OKC. You've got New York and Detroit in the East. Everybody else has got work to do, in my view, to justify a real solid chance. So we'll see how that all shakes out. We'll stay with the NBA a lot more as the postseason gets closer. And Hazi, I have to say, I mean, this may be the obvious thing, but 2 Knicks fans here, I think we might have to make something happen in April. Watch some of the playoff games together with a shared interest and a commonality with the team we're rooting for. So we'll see if that ends up happening in April.
And so I'll end it on this,
Yep.
especially with the Knicks. You and I have very different takes on, and especially when the trade deadline was happening, of the Giannis for Cat trade.
Yeah.
Which seems to be, if the Knicks and Bucks are going to make a move with each other, inevitable.
Yeah.
I don't agree with trading for Cat. You do, because I believe his offensive game does make up for what he does lack defense.
Now, I amended my take on this recently. My new opinion, and it's not that different, is I think it's best for the Knicks to make the trade in the summer. I think if they made the move at the deadline, it would have been unwise because Giannis is not fully healthy. This is the main reason why. Without his health being a guarantee, you kind of become like Boston, where you've got this star in the wings, and is he going to come back? Is he going to be 100%? And then if he is he going to gel with the team, right? You become just like Boston. Right. So I think the Celtics are injured. You got to take the guaranteed healthy team right now. But I do believe the Knicks make the move in the summer. You don't?
I don't. And the reason why I don't is because to me, and yes, Cat at times is a defensive liability.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, and make excuses for him, especially not when he's fouled out the amount of times he's fouled out this
4
season.
times this year.
4 times already, and we haven't even hit the playoffs. And yes, but the issue is, to me, and my hot take is, I'd rather trade Cat for a better big that can help out Mitchell Robinson on the defensive side of the ball. Because my thing with Mitchell Robinson...
That's not Giannis?
Because my thing is this. Like, if I expect Mitchell to be down low on the defensive side of the ball, I need somebody else who can stretch the floor on the offense. Giannis doesn't do that for me the way that Cat does. And yes, Giannis is great at getting inside, and he's great at forcing his way to the bucket. But, like, if Jalen's triple teamed, I'm not asking Giannis to shoot the three.
Right.
And, yeah, we have Deuce, and we have Landry Shamet, and we have guys who can shoot the three as well. But to me, adding Cat just allows so much more, because you can now have those cutting guys behind him. Or, you can basically play 5 out. And if you want Jalen to, play one-on-one inside,
right,
he can get into the paint. And the thing is, my thing with Jalen Brunson is, you can all sit there and say, oh, well, he also does it with free throws. Jalen Brunson doesn't average more than 4 free throws a game.
Yeah.
And he mostly drops 30 to 35 a night.
Right. Well, it's a trade that didn't happen, and we'll see if there is a move made in the summer. We'll have to leave it there with our time running out, but we do thank you so much for finding us in the morning here on a Friday. We'll be back Monday afternoon with the rundown for Hazi Richardson. This is David Mooradian saying, enjoy 24-hour radio day on KAMP Student Radio.